Ciao, everyone. Uh, I'm used to saying ciao, like saying goodbye. Here in the US, we say ciao, goodbye sometimes, but ciao, hello is new for me. Well, um, yeah, just very sweet to be with you all. Feels very kind of warm and mm, comfortable. And thank you all for being willing to do this in English or translated. That's another reason why I said yes to doing this, because that's how we as individuals are relating to not only conflict and challenges in our own lives, but also what's happening on the larger levels is super important to me. Like, really has a lot of my attention, what's happening on those levels. As you can imagine, here in the United States, there's a lot happening, but all over so many countries. And it's just so important to me to kind of learn together and practice and support each other in what's happening on these large levels. And how do we respond to that in a meaningful way? We can feel kind of helpless and powerless and overwhelmed, but I feel like every little thing we do that's about connection and love and empathy, that makes a difference and helps sort of shift away from so much of the kind of destructiveness of conflict right now. So I'm just very delighted to be part of the team, working with Fabio and everybody, and just grateful you all are interested or already coming. So as you all probably know, the main structure of the days of the IIT is there are two periods in the day where there are multiple offerings from different trainers, and so a period in the morning, a period in the afternoon, and then there's evening time as well. What I have in mind is that in some of those breakout sessions or those offerings, that myself and others will offer things related to how to deal with those kind of social political conflicts as a focus of learning and practice. But I'm also thinking about how we bring the differences in the people at the IIT and working with those differences, whatever they are at that social level, in a way that's as feeling as safe and connecting as we can create that space for, but that still has the edge of it's real, real conflict, and being able to hold that with each other and be kind of courageous about entering into that space and talking about where we have differences, or maybe role playing people in your life who have certain political views that are very challenging for you. So we can get a breadth of a diversity of people's where people are in these different issues, and then really work with how do we talk about these things. And there are lots of with NVC, but there's also ways to structure that and bring a lot of deep kind of presence and awareness to how we connect around those kind of really often very difficult things to talk about, and so things we can do larger in the larger group, or people can have the option to do in bigger spaces of talking about those things together. um what else would I say about that? Yeah, well, at IITs now, it's becoming more customary that we kind of co-create, at least the ones I've been to recently, co-creating somewhat a conflict resolution system in the IIT. So, like, developing as a group and for practice to take that into other places. Like, how do you how do you consciously create as a group the way you want to handle conflict in the group? So it could be any kind of conflict, right? Because in any group, right, different conflicts come up in different ways. So there would be that's becoming a more common thing at IITs to set that up as a kind of conscious thing as part of the IIT. But then in this case, with this IIT, it's also about how do we, different ways to talk about the larger social issues and to make spaces for that in different ways and to really invite that, really and bring that forward to to work with. So yeah, so those are what I'm thinking, and there would be choices. So maybe some people don't want to do that, right? Of course, and there'd be other things you could do, and not everybody would have to do the things like on those levels. There'll be choice, but for people that want to, and hopefully larger numbers of people, so we really get that richness at a larger level, larger group level. Uh, that's what I have in mind, and I'm very excited about learning together how do we have those conversations, and so it's practice but it's also real. Try to make it as real as we can, and often there is a lot of real difficult stuff that comes up to work with, but to do it in a very connecting way, a very caring way with each other. So something I've been doing for about 5 years now is something originally I've called across the aisle. It's like the political aisle. So across the aisle, conversations in an online group space that people come from all over. And I co-developed early on, and then I continued to offer by myself that space online to talk about these issues. So there's a very specific process that has been developed, and I've continued to, develop and use for a number of years now. So I'll be offering something about that process, and myself. Other trainers might offer other kinds of processes, but for me, I'll offer that, and it's a it's a kind of mediation process, but that can be done in a larger group that includes more people and is focused on uh, these kind of topics, these social topics. So it's something based on mediate your life in that sense of how I've created it, but it's also its own kind of thing as well. That's not something people would have learned in other mediate your life training. With those different sessions of those 2 periods of the day, it can be small, what we do in the morning. So there's a morning session that everybody is invited and requested to come to, a community session. And part of that community session is we share the offerings we're doing that day, the trainers. And then people give a sense of which ones they want to go to. And then depending on that, we select the rooms, because different rooms, usually different size rooms. And but depending, it can be just a few people sometimes, like 5 or 10, small, and then sometimes it's like 20, 30 or more people in a session. It really varies on the topic and just who's drawn to what on a given day. Themes of the day, different training teams hold that differently, like less formally, more informally. We haven't decided that, but yeah, usually each day is uh one of those 8 themes. We have 8 full days together. Um and each day has there are different themes. So yeah, we're trying to organize our offerings around those themes as they, and we sometimes change the order of those themes. But yeah, that's part of it, Sherry. That's right. And then there's just each of us has usually a certain, like a kind of a body of work or a way that we like to really offer NVC. And there's usually many more things we could offer than we have time to offer. And so we we're just trying to, yeah, decide what's the best for the group that we of all the things we could offer. And sometimes it changes as we are interacting with people, as we get requests, as we see how things are unfolding over time, then we might change some of what we're offering to match what is sort of happening in the group and what requests people are making. And there are ways, if there's a request to offer something, maybe we can weave that in to something else that kind of still reference it a bit, do a little bit on that, and then also the new thing. So we can find sometimes creative ways to meet people's requests, basically, in as many ways as we can. Are usually a good number of handouts from each of us there's like a manual or a binder of resources, written materials. So you can really get a sense of what the content is of different sessions we offer just by looking at the handouts. And then there are things like lunch tables or dinner tables where you can organize that, and one of us or more of trainers could meet and people can ask questions about topics they want more information about, or if they missed a session, we could talk about it over a meal. So that's another strategy, as well as the home groups as a place to share more, like in larger groups, about what's being offered in the different sessions, even if you aren't there. So part of this online conversation, I think of it also as a healing space for sort of social level conflicts and pains that we carry at that social level. I really believe that, or I found and heard from so many people, that what they learn talking about those things in this kind of structured setting gives them confidence and some clarity how to bring like a way to talk about that in their lives with people in their lives. They can take that experience, that practice, some of the structure, and help them have those kind of difficult so conversations about social topics that often people stay away from or just get in unproductive conflict around, and really learn how to have those conversations in their lives. So that's something I've heard over and over, how much it helps people that way, gives people some confidence and trust they can actually have good conversations with people they really disagree with about those things in their own lives. Because I think a lot of times at IITs or other NVC trainings, the focus is so much on the interpersonal conflict, the internal conflict, which is all really important, of course, but then not always talking about that larger level of things. And now with what's happening in the world, I feel it's more important than ever. And how we relate to that in our own lives. How do
Mm.
we, relate to what we see in the news and conversations we're having, or conflicts that are coming up in our families or coworkers, or about those social issues, and that we can really talk about those things. And we don't have to be afraid of them or avoid them or have really bad conversations, but or lose friendships or so. You can really learn, like, there are ways to talk about those things that are just like we can learn to talk about other hard things, right? That it's just another type of hard thing to talk about that can be done very skillfully, very with a lot of connection, a lot of care and sensitivity, and really embracing our differences. How do we hold our differences even at that level that can be so difficult to talk about? Another thing I think is, this word resilience gets maybe a little overused these days, but there's something about how do we cope with what's happening in the world, the the pace of change, the way technology is impacting us, the way
Mm.
environmental issues are, as well as the social divides. Like, all of it can feel so overwhelming. I think a lot of people are not coping very well with that. They're really having a hard time. And for me, this is like, we could frame it as it's different, it's conflict, which is like, how do we get better at sort of surfing and riding the waves of difficulty, and often taking the form of different kinds of conflict. and that we can really learn, like even just at the level of our own nervous system, we can learn how to calm and our nervous system, and we can be more centered and grounded, even when there's all this turbulence around us and what we're seeing in the world can be very scary, right, overwhelming. We can really learn how to relate to that in a way that's not, we're not overwhelmed. Yeah, we're concerned or we're sad about the suffering that we're seeing, right? But we can stay really like grounded and connected in that. And then we can respond even in little ways, in ways that are about the world we want to happen, the world we want to create, instead of perpetuating just more fear and anger and outrage. So that's too at an even deeper kind of internal level, how we can, what we can take away from this IIT and bring back into our lives. So back to you, Fabio and Olga.
Yes, only 10 seconds to say, you understand that we are going to work very deep, and we choose this venue because you can see around the venue there is nature, very beautiful, and this help us to work in this IIT. So Aldo, we can go to close, I think.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for coming. If you have more questions, you can write us an email. You find it on the internet page. And yeah, maybe just to close, if you want to open your mic and say goodbye, ciao, John. Now it's the right moment for you too. And thank
Now
you
I
for
can feel
being here,
comfortable with
everyone.
that.
Yes, exactly. Thanks.
Grazie,
Ciao.
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 Grazie.
A
Ciao.
tutti.